You're tuned into Afters, a podcast where I, Anthony Cuellar, speak with some of my favorite artists and friends on the scene today in New York and worldwide. Hello and welcome to Afters. This is episode 1 and I'm super excited to introduce my first guest ever. I've tapped my friend Joselo, who is a New York City-based DJ and producer. He's been running the party Maricon since 2014. You've seen Joselo play some of our favorite clubs and bars in New York City, such as Paragon, Nowadays, Mood Ring, and more. I am honored that he agreed to appear in my very first episode. We've actually been talking about this for well over a year, and we finally made it happen. I'm pleased to introduce you to Joselo. I hope you enjoy this conversation as much as I did. Tell me about your background. Where did you grow up, and how long have you been in New York City?
So I grew up right outside of Boston, pretty much raised in southern New Hampshire. My family moved there from Puerto Rico. My dad traveled quite a bit, but ended up there mostly because of religious reasons. And then I ended up moving to New York in 2007, and I've been here since.
Did you grow up around music, and did you have any DJs in the family? Did you play music at home?
So music was definitely mostly centered around the religion. So my dad was somebody that loved music. So I grew up Pentecostal, which is a branch of Christianity that's has a very extreme doctrine. So I was definitely kind of closed off to most things. Growing up, a lot of my friends knew who the Beatles were through their friends, or just, things like that. I mostly just knew some Spanish music, but mostly church music. But my dad, he played the guitar. He also played the cuatro, which is a 4-string guitar. That's a very kind of folk, Puerto Rican folk music. And then me and my sisters all sang, and we sang in church and stuff like that. And then for a little while, I played the timbales and the drums in my church. So that was kind of my main introduction to music.
What were some of your sources of music and culture growing up? You said you went to school and you'd hear people talk about other artists. How did you stay connected?
So the way that I stayed connected is, of course, the internet. I was in high school right around that time where MIA was kind of starting to come out big, or kind of that internet-y time of music. So when I think it was when I was 16, I would sneak out to this queer party in Boston called Bagley. That's where I actually met a ton of my friends that really kind of introduced me to different styles of music. That's where I met my friend Khalif, better known as Leaf. At 16, we were running around Boston being fucking idiots. And I also, one of my close friends growing up his name is Javis. He goes by JavaScript, and he was definitely a big influence and introduced me to a lot of things like Spank Rock, Santa Gold. And that was kind of my big introduction to kind of independent underground music. Before then, of course I had LimeWire and stuff like that. And although I wasn't really allowed to listen to secular music, that's how you say it, right? Secular music?
Is it secular or non-secular? I always get it wrong.
I don't know.
Non-religious music.
So although I wasn't allowed to listen to secular music, I also had friends in high school where I would go to hardcore shows and kind of pop punky shows. And so I was basically around the age of 16 was when I was able to get a job, get myself a car, get my license. And that's when I was really able to like venture away from the church because I always had the excuse of working. And that's when I started kind of figuring out myself musically. But before then, my dad was really, in the early 2000s, was really into reggaeton, which was like shocking to me because, you know, like that was so against our religion. It was like definitely not something that was allowed. And like, I remember one of his favorite artists was Tego Calderon because he was like, you know, he was like a poet in some sense. You could almost consider him, maybe this is a reach, but like the Tupac of the reggaeton generation, where he really spoke about the people. He spoke about politics. Like he was just a fucking pioneer when it came to that. And I was actually really into his music. So yeah, I had my little moments of kind of like finding out about different things and being allowed to listen to other things. But in terms of, you know, my exposure to music, it felt very secretive. It felt like I had to hide a lot of it. You know, I remember when I first got like LimeWire, I remember I was really obsessed with all of Timbaland's beats. That was like, that shit turned me the fuck out. And I'm still fucking obsessed with his production from like the late 90s and early 2000s. But I would find my ways, you know, as a young kid, especially being like a young queer kid in a very, very anti-gay religion, you find your ways to like kind of explore outside of the boundaries that are set for you. But yeah, I think I went on a tangent.
No. I mean, Timbaland's like legendary.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I'm just thinking about Boston. Like, I've been to Boston a bunch of times. Like, were these like queer parties or were these just like house parties? Like, I'm just curious about like what those spaces were.
It was definitely giving more of a like, it was almost giving like high school prom. Like it was like organized by people and it was, you know, you could go there under 18. But I only went to a couple of them actually. And then I had some friends from a different high school in my town, which was considered the like wealthier high school. And Bagley was like one of the things, but most of the things were like house parties and hang out in people's basements. You know, it's interesting because now that I'm talking to you about this, I realize like how many different shifts and scenes I went through from the time that I was able to kind of gain my own freedom to like the short time between then and me like officially leaving and moving New York City. You know, I went through my like hardcore phase. And I wouldn't call it a phase because I still listen to a lot of that music still.
Like hardcore music.
Yeah. Like Hammer Bros, some later stuff like Evergreen Terrace. I was a big faggot for Chiodos. And like
I know nothing about this genre. So
really,
that's cool though.
yeah, I was a huge fan of that stuff, and then from there I got introduced to like MIA back in the early 2000s, and you know, even like Cakes Tequila, when I started hearing their stuff, and Rose Boogie, like her original like older music, I was just so fucking like shook by it. I was like, this is fucking fire. And yeah, I started kind of like, because I definitely had, growing up, I had a lot of insecurities about the lack of references and knowledge of like pop culture and music culture. And like sometimes I still have that a little bit, because I definitely do have these like tricky moments with like the religious thing and kind of like going into these weird backwards way of thinking and being like, oh my God, like was the religion right? Like is what I'm doing bad? And I think I was just so conditioned in that religion and was so sheltered and like taught about, I was just kind of like all this fear was instilled into me. So I have this really, really interesting relationship with music and life in general, really.
Does that come up for you like in the music process, or is that just in all aspects of your life?
I think in all aspects of my life, but I do notice it coming up for me in the music part.
During a set or something, or
Not necessarily during a set, mostly when I'm digging for tracks. But a lot of it is kind of like, I have friends that grew up with their parents like playing old house music, and like even friends that were like exposed or like were around, um I just forgot the genre of music. La India did it, very New York. I can't.
I know you're not freestyle, but like
Freestyle.
Okay,
It was
okay.
freestyle, yeah. Um but yeah, but I was never around that, and like I sometimes started feeling like I was playing catch up in a sense. Um but music has always been a huge part of my life, though. It has, like, and definitely it's very interesting to have it be something that like I'm making money off of now.
Right.
You know, it actually kind of makes it a little more difficult to work on things because it has this weight of like, this is how I'm going to survive, or like this is where I put all my energy into. And it gets scary, you know, because I don't come from a family that has any kind of money. I'm not inheriting anything. You know, I help out as much as I can. And like, you know, it's kind of like I don't have a safety net. So it gets scary when you're like putting your time and energy into something that really like could go either way. You know, it's not like going to school for finance or going to school to be a doctor. You have a clear path. You have this kind of guaranteed structure as to how your life is gonna be.
Do you think that like prevents you from being like experimental, or do you feel like you're able to like explore and be experimental in like your process?
I have a very huge range. I, you know, can play anywhere from like just a club night to like a Spanish reggaeton night to a techno night. And sometimes, like, especially since I've been doing this for so long, it's like everyone has their sound and they stick to their sound. And like with me, I just enjoy so many different avenues of music that the idea of like boxing myself into something really stresses me out and kind of hinders my ability to like even like put a mix out. You know, it's like, because there's so much weight on this being how I'm going to survive, it can make me spiral and be like, I have to be smart. Like, what should I stick to? Like, should I keep it consistent? So I've been definitely going through this weird kind of thing of how do I blend all these sounds into something that feels like me, but would also make sense to be booked in a lot of places.
Did you spend a lot of time in New York City before you moved here, or what was your like impressions? Or
I had never been here.
so you moved and that was your first time?
It was my first time.
Wow.
The main thing was, I'm like any young like little gay boy. I wasn't out to anybody, and I knew that I just needed to move far away, just to be able to like actually live my life. And Boston was just didn't make sense for me. It felt too close, and I was definitely influenced by things like Party Monster and like.
Okay, so you knew that that's like, I'm going to New York because there's this world that like.
It was, yeah, and it wasn't so much that I was interested in like entering that world of the nightlife scene. I just knew that I could be me, because I saw the extreme of like being whoever you want and like being a freak, and like, and also I just knew that I could just do whatever the fuck I wanted, and I didn't have to be scared of being myself. And that was a huge thing that I grew up with for so long. That fear of like, I mean, I was taught that like you were possessed with a demon if you were gay. And I wanted to get as far away from that as possible. And I knew that New York City was like the place. And that's when I started to like really kind of get introduced to things. I think my first things that I was introduced to was like Rough Club, which was
Oh my God, yes, Lower East Side.
Lower
I used to
East
go to
Side iconic
Wait,
party.
so we've been crossing paths for so many years. I don't understand how we just met 2 years ago at Sustain Release.
I can't believe we just met at Sustain. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
kind of nuts.
It's insane.
But Rough Club was one of the big things that would
So
go
you were like
there.
an indie kid then for a minute.
Oh, 1000%. My first job in New York City was at American Apparel in 2000,
Oh,
like
hell
8
yeah.
or 9.
You were. So were you hanging out at McCarran Park Pool, like the pool parties?
Are you
What
absolutely?
the fuck? Like literally, I was there every single party. Like blogger, like just there.
Did you ever go to Lit Lounge?
Yeah, of course. Now it's the cock.
Now it's the cock. Lit Lounge was
Did you flat iron your hair? Like
okay. I
Were you
didn't.
that
I
extreme?
wasn't. No. I did have like a bit of a mullet, but I wasn't giving flat ironed hair.
okay.
No.
We gotta pull up some pictures because
Oh, you want photos?
okay,
I got photos.
Yeah, we'll have to do that offline. But like, we had to have seen each. Like, this makes no sense to me.
I know. I wonder if there's still. Is there an archive of the Rough Club
I
photos?
wonder. I'll have to check. Were
Was
you one
that-
of those people that were like got a picture up every week?
I didn't do it every week, but I definitely have at least 2.
Okay.
At least 2. Yeah.
That's
That was
okay.
such a fun party. I remember like
Right.
Lindsay Lohan used to go to that,
Mhm.
but it wasn't giving like, oh, Lindsay Lohan, the celebrity. It was giving kind of just like the grit and the grunge of it all.
Yeah. Yeah, not a lot of people know about that era. Like, weren't here for it. So like, it's fun to like, yeah.
Yeah. Well, then I was introduced to like a little further down, like I was introduced to like ghetto gothic.
Mhm.
I was like, I also ended up moving to Bushwick, I think in like, I can't remember, 2013, 14.
Okay. And where were you before that?
Before that, I had hopped around. So I moved to Brooklyn in Brooklyn Heights, and I was living in dorms there.
Was it St. George Hotel?
Yeah.
I lived there too.
Shut the fuck.
That's so funny. Yeah, that had like the history of being the pool that Marilyn Monroe would stay at that hotel because they had a saltwater pool in the basement or something, right?
Yeah.
That's so funny.
Wild. So I stayed in those dorms, and then shortly after, I was still in school, but I moved in I have this friend Sam that I know from New Hampshire who's like this amazing artist. I ended up going to Pratt for architecture, and him and his friends lived in Bed-Stuy on Taffy Place. It's really beautiful loft. I ended up moving over there and moving in with them. I think once I moved to Bushwick, I was like, oh, this is like where I need to be. Because that was like early Bushwick days.
Mm-hmm.
Like there was only Rec Room.
Yep, I used to DJ there.
And there was Tandem.
Yep.
And those were like the 2 spots. Like,
Did you ever go to the Gotham City Lounge, the like superhero bar?
no, I
Under the
know
tree?
it, but I actually never went to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've lived all over. And then like moved to Bushwick once I kind of got my shit together.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I was there at that time too. That was definitely the place to be, and like things were coming up. Like it was Tandem, it was Rec Room. Did you ever go to Body Actualize? That Market Hotel. There was like those were the places, and then of course Bossa Nova opened in 2012.
Yes, so I didn't start going to Bossa until maybe like 2014, 2015. Mm-hmm. Like that's when I started to like, because I was definitely more in the like clubby underground, like POC without calling it POC. Mm-hmm. I just kind of related more with.
What were those parties?
So it was like Contessa Studo. I don't know if you know Cunt Mafia. Shout out to Cunt Mafia and Contessa. She is a fucking legend. And she was throwing parties like Cherry Bomb, and I can't remember all the other parties, but she would throw parties along the like Williamsburg waterfront before it was ever developed. and it was just like,
wow, I didn't experience that. I was more into like the DIY, like
it was,
yeah. But that obviously, it sounds like that, but a different. I just wasn't plugged into that scene.
Wait, speaking of DIY, did you ever go to Rubalad?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was on like Flushing Ave or like Taffy.
Yeah, I used to go to that a bit, and yeah, that was definitely like my introduction to like psychedelic spaces.
Same, actually, yeah. So I found that space through friends that went to Pratt, because when I was living with all of them, that was like more the vibe.
Yeah.
I ended up being introduced to like through my friend Khalif. Actually, he brought me to a lot of these places. You know, like I would go and watch Quay Dash like perform, and just all these fucking iconic like New York people. No Bra.
Yep. So I'm gonna just jump to a different topic now. So I scrolled through your Instagram to your first post in 2014. What is your relationship to social media? I know it's like, obviously it's kind of a part of the job, but like, how does it play into your life as DJ and the music scene and everything?
So it's interesting. I used to use social media all the time, a lot. And I still use it, but not as much as I used to. My relationship with it has changed a lot over the past like year or two. It was really what helped me be gay when I was closeted. There were certain things like these websites called like D-List. I don't know if you guys know them.
Okay, yeah.
It was kind of like Adam for Adam or Manhunt, but make it Facebook and not for sex. It was like MySpace, but like gay.
Okay, I was thinking about D-Listed. That's a celebrity thing, but I think I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
So D-List was just like, it was just a gay MySpace.
Got it. So you were a D-List icon influencer?
I mean, I definitely, the cool thing was that's actually, I met a lot of people that lived in New York before I moved here through there.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. And, you know, I think social media is great. I definitely, you know, like, going out when I first got to New York, it was very word of mouth, you know, and there were definitely, like, maybe Facebook and MySpace posts, but, like, everything that I found out about, like even like Ninja Sonic shows and like all that stuff, like I found out just word of mouth, which I miss so much. I miss that, like, I miss things happening and like it being organic and the crowd being organic, rather than like, you know, now I produce events and you have this stress of how many people are going to get there. We have all these things to pay. Like, and there's so much going on now that, like, I think social media definitely, I won't say, I'm not going to be one of those bitter, like, old queens that's like, social media ruined nightlife, but it changed it a lot. And it changed New York City underground a lot, which is cool, but you know, I've always enjoyed social media. I think it was my way of, like, kind of figuring myself out before I was surrounded by anybody that I felt like I connected to or that felt similar to me. You know?
Did you ever go to the venue called Bodega? It was like on, it was short-lived, but yeah, I remember, because you mentioned Ninja Sonic, it made me think about that. It definitely went to a couple like DIY shows that felt very dangerously undercode DIY venue.
Oh,
like a lot of these
1000%.
spaces.
Yeah.
And we're spoiled now. The kids these days, like,
they're spoiled, but like if you really think about it, they're kind of like missing out on a lot.
There's like an era of like the danger that sort of made it exciting too.
Yeah, 100%. And like it just felt like New York. Like it was given like, this is New York. Like,
I agree.
Everyone needs to watch out. There's no such thing as a safe space. You show up, you be yourself. If you have to fight, you defend yourself. And, you know, there was something about, that's why I wanted to move here. I wanted to be myself, and I wanted to kind of just be thrown right into it. And, you know, things are definitely a little more for the vine, if you will.
What is that?
I don't know if there was this app called Vine.
Oh, Vine.
And like people would like do something stupid and they'd be like, do it for the Vine.
Right. No, I miss Vine. Vine was like the best video platform in my opinion.
Yo, it was great. It was great. But things now are definitely like very smoke and mirrorsy, like, which is just, it's interesting. It's interesting. And I still have fun going out. I'm not knocking anything, but it's interesting to like have gotten here right as that was shifting.
Yeah.
And to see the shift happen.
All right. So now, Maricon, the party. Tell me about how that came about.
Maricon, the party. I actually, the first Maricon, I want to say it was in 2014 or 15. And I booked Joey LaBeija, who's one of my very close sisters. I love her.
Where was it at? Where did you have it?
It was at Tropical 128. I didn't really hang out in gay spaces at all for a really long time. I would go to like Splash or like the random like gay bars. But the times that I did hang out in gay spaces, I realized, because it wasn't giving queer back then. It was giving...
Yeah,
it's
Chelsea boys. Like,
yeah.
Twinks.
And like, I realized that there was never anything with like reggaeton or Spanish music. I mean, there was like escuelitas,
right,
and café con leche. Like, those parties would happen, but I wanted like something that was more focused on kind of like reggaeton and the shit that I like was really, really into, that like I never really got a chance to listen to out. So then I brought the party back, and that was the main focus. And I think that was in like 2017 I brought it back. You know, because I feel like we never had our spot. We never had our space.
Yeah, even Escuelita, I got to experience that like towards the end. Like, I wasn't here, you know, I would go with my cousin, and that was definitely, I feel like, not so much for us. It was like definitely for like the older crowd, I feel.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know, I feel like I couldn't find like a scene that I felt 100% attached to. And like my motive at that time was not at all to like create that scene or anything like that, but I just wanted to like create an event to finally have that and be able to just like celebrate Latin music and celebrate being like artsy, but still a little hood, but still being like a faggot.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of like that alt hood girl.
Yeah.
You know?
No, I definitely felt that. I've definitely like, you don't quite fit into certain boxes. So at that point, when you were throwing these parties, were you already were DJing at that point, or?
No, so then I threw the second one.
Where was that one? What venue?
That was at Mercury Lounge.
Oh, interesting.
And I booked that one, and I booked myself to DJ only because I wanted to save money on the lineup. And like all my friends were DJs at that point, you know, and all my friends were over new DJs and stuff like that. And like,
Who played? Do you remember who played the first one?
the first one,
Or the second one?
the second one, Student, shout out to Student, you're a fucking legend. BB, Alex BB, DJ BB, Bebe, Alex Lopez, Sweetheart, and me, and I think like my friend Hantu Taylor Ward Cherry, love her too. So they all played, and then I closed out, and that was my first time DJing ever. And like ever. And
were you scared?
I was scared, but it was definitely one of those times where like I was just like, I don't give a fuck. Like, I felt really good about my track selection. And honestly, I turned it out not in terms of mixing. The mixing was a fucking train wreck.
Yeah.
Like, I did not understand how to use the equipment at all. But I knew what tracks I wanted to play, and it was a lot of fun. And from there, I refused to call myself a DJ. So I just kept playing my own party. And then I started kind of like, I started viewing it as like this kind of like sonic journey that you can bring people in. And I started finding out more about like more experimental like Latin music, you know, like Carmen Durand, like everything that Nafi was doing, Venus X.
Yeah.
Like I was so like, whoa, these kids are like taking everything I want to play, but just like their interpretation of it is so fucking refreshing and cool.
Cross genre, it was really innovative.
It was super innovative. Super.
Yeah.
And I ended up actually getting asked to DJ a party. I can't even remember what it was. But then I took the gig. I didn't have equipment. I taught myself everything. I ended up actually like being able to use like two friends, like their equipment here and there to play. But like, you know, a lot of my like older DJ friends had someone there to kind of be their like DJ mother, or like to just kind of like teach them how to. And I did not have that whatsoever. And I kind of just obsessed over blending and like, how can I make this sound cool or different? So yeah, so that's how I started DJing. Was throwing my own party, wanting to save money on a lineup, and refusing to call myself a DJ, and then realizing that I was actually getting really into it, and it was also teaching me a lot about music. You know, like I was digging for a reason, and it felt cool. And that was around the time when like Nguzu Nguzu was like big, and like Dina Marca. And once I like tapped into that, I was just like, wait, I'm into this. You know, and it was never a thing about like making it my main source of income at all. It was just more so that I really started just enjoying it.
Yeah.
And
Love of music and everything.
Yeah.
We talked a little about the Maricon party. I'm just curious, like when you created that party, did you feel like there was a market for that, or like were people showing up that you were intended to like have that party for, or was it just like what was the?
I think there was definitely a market for it, but I really wanted it to be Latin music, period. You know, I created it because I wanted to like create that space for people, and my dream was really to like, I was in this kind of moment where I was just like, I want your regular New Jersey train to come out and hear the tracks that he loves to hear, but in a different way, and like be inspired and be like, whoa, that was different. That was cool.
That's really interesting.
And
So you were playing music for trade.
always, always, bitch. Trades are my sisters, but like, trades first.
Yeah.
And when you start just like really committing to it, you know, and not trying to change it up, people start to be a little more open and just learning, wanting to be like more open to just hearing new things that are still relatable and are still adjacent to like, you know, whatever original track you're remixing. And it worked out. I mean, I had like the Uptown Kids. I had the Brooklyn like indie artsy kids that definitely were more receptive to it at first.
Yeah.
And then I would have like the Jersey trades, and I would have the like Jackson Heights trades like coming in. And I sometimes go onto the Maricon page to look at the like first couple parties because I have the stories highlighted.
Yeah.
And I'm like, bitch, like for only being the second, third, fourth party, or third, fourth, fifth party, like people wanted this. It was fucking fab. You know, like I had Solange come to my party.
What?
Robin
Wow.
come to my party.
Kalela, I saw.
Kalela. You know what? Also, the cool thing, you know, when I say these names, it's not about like, because I always wanted to keep Maricon underground.
Yeah.
I wanted this underground feel. I never really wanted to do these huge sponsors and like kind of, because then I knew that I would have to switch it up and make it a little more like palatable or accessible or you know, kind of water it down in order to like get that big corporate coins and stuff. It was just never, it never felt commercial. It felt still very underground New York. And that was my goal. I just wanted to keep it like feeling fucking authentic, feeling as like independent as possible, and keeping that old New York edge. You know, my party definitely is a safe space, but like it's also a little edgy. Who knows? Like,
Yeah, definitely. And it's funny because like we've said this before earlier, but like we were in the same spaces. We were parallel to each other for so long, but yeah, I mean, I met you 2 years ago at the same release, and then I actually had never been to Maricon until I met you. Like, which is crazy that it wasn't on my radar. It's just, the city's
Right.
vast, and it's like
very.
there's so much happening. Yeah, but it did stay underground in that sense. Then.
But like New York now more than ever has had so many like parties come up. There are way more events than there ever were in New York right now, especially within the same scene. Cause back when I first started Maricon, like the people in the like Bushwick scene, let's say, like not that many people were throwing like that many parties. You know?
No, it's true. I mean, nowadays, like sometimes there's 4 events that you have to choose from. Like if you were gonna go out, and sometimes if you're crazy like me, you'll go to all of them.
Yeah.
So, do you remember the first show that you played as a booked artist?
I do remember that like early on I ended up playing a Papi Juice, and it was on my birthday. And I was really excited about that. I was so happy they brought me on.
Did they all kind of like happen at once? Was it like you did one?
They just all started coming in. Like I remember Hannah Daly HD threw a party and booked me for it. I remember I played a party for Vaquera, like fashion after party. I played a couple different things. But it's been so long. I don't remember my first ones. If I go into Record Box and I look at my playlist, I have all my playlists from every single gig.
Really?
I do.
Wow.
So I'd probably be able to find it. I should create like a little Spotify playlist of every era.
Era.
She's giving granny. I remember my first techno focused gig, and that was for Bound, Katie Rex's party. I played at Good Room, and I played it in the Bad Room, and I turned it the fuck out.
Nice.
I
want to hear that one.
That's when I was like, oh, I love playing techno. Like, that's when I really started to like kind of like learn more and understand. And I had played a bunch of like old 90s tracks and like things like DJ Rush and like, so like those are sets that I like really remember.
What is it about that? I know like what you described, like you turned it out. Like, what is it about the DJ being up there that is so fulfilling that like you want to keep doing it? Like,
so I'm somebody that likes to mix and blend heavily. Mm-hmm. And I remember that gig, I was using 3 CDJs most of the night. And like that was one of my first gigs using 3 CDJs. And I think what was so fulfilling was learning how to loop tracks and how to pull different elements from each track to kind of like almost create your own sound or track in general. And that was when I was like, oh bitch, I'm fucking wet. Like when the audience is going crazy and I think what I really enjoy is when I know that I'm like being very technical and the audience is responding.
You're seeing them. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Honestly, like that's something. So that's why I love like this project that you're the first guest on, because it's like I hear, like, especially when it's a 3 CDJ setup, like the looping and the sampling, it's like I'm one of those people that hears all that and I'm just like freaking out. And it's like not everyone is attuned to that or not even like paying attention in that way. Like I'll like go to the person next to me and be like, oh, we're hearing this sample. And sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. It's just like, or like I'll say, oh, that's this. And then minutes later, they're like, oh shit, yeah, you're right. Like that kind of thing. Like I'm just my ear to that stuff is like, just, I really geek out on that. So it's like really,
That's fab.
yeah.
That's cool.
If you were booking a night, like what would be like your dream lineup, DJ lineup for like a party? Anyone that's like on the scene now, or like you can go as crazy with that answer as you want.
All right, so I'm gonna give you like a couple of different examples.
Okay.
But like, so also like with Maricon, you know, I threw it on my own for a while, and then I brought in Fried Plátano, Elvin,
Yeah.
and we have like dove into like the Café con Leche crew and just like all those people and those producers and DJs. So like, if I was to do a night focused on Latin house or like tribal house, my dream lineup would be like Kenny Dope, Lord G, Junior Vasquez, Louis Vega, just those people. If I wanted to give that old school sound, like I would die.
Right.
That would be my ultimate all-star lineup. For more like new agey stuff, like I mean, I get to DJ with DJ Florentino, who's a producer from London. Fucking iconic. He's throwing a party on my birthday, February 16th, at Paragon, and I'm actually gonna be DJing with Calvin Duran, who has always been a huge influence of mine, and with Florentino, with Ekis. So I'm really excited about that, and that's kind of fulfilling a dream for me.
So you're on the dream lineup then.
I'm on the dream lineup. But like, I think off the mic you asked me a question about like a back-to-back or something like that.
What would be like a dream back-to-back for you?
So I would love to do, there's a couple people there. I would love, when it came to like old school underground reggaeton, DJ Negro, DJ Blas, DJ Playero. Those three for like old school reggaeton would be fucking sick. Or if we're talking a little more like new age, I mean DJ Baba. I've been trying to get DJ Baba from Maricon for years, and it's just been hard because of visa stuff. But doing a back to back with DJ Baba would be like a fucking dream.
Where are they based?
He is in Caracas.
Okay.
And you know, I love like Merca Bay. Let's see who else. There's other people there, but I can't really. I'm kind of on the spot. But DJ Baba is one person. Nick Leon, I think, is a great producer. Doing some really fucking cool stuff. That would be a really fun like back to back or lineup. But off of the top of my head, those are like the people that I think. Yeah, those are the people that are like constantly in my head that I'm thinking about quite a bit, in terms of like wanting to book or would love to like back to back with.
Have you thought about moving into the production space at all, or do you?
Absolutely, I have made quite a few tracks. Like not good.
Any vocals from your church singing days?
I mean, I would tear it the
Let's
fuck.
do it. Let's hear it.
You want to hear a little sample?
Alright, give us a freestyle.
Okay,
please. I'm
chill
kidding,
out.
I'm kidding.
I gotta get paid for that, baby.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's giving email my manager. But no, production, yes, absolutely. I mean, I have a folder dedicated to tracks that I'm very inspired by that I would love to use as like a base of what my production would sound like I think I would really like to merge a lot of like tribal house with techno and with like a reggaeton bass line or beat, but maybe sped up. And you know, there's things that exist in that realm already, but I have a full vision of what I want to produce. It's more so just learning Ableton and like having the time to like put into like really, really figuring out how to produce. And I think that's the big thing that's getting in my way is finding the time to really like learn Ableton and how to create what I hear in my head. But yes, hopefully soon I will have a little release for y'all.
Yes, we love that. It's also interesting to me, like, in terms of, like, production and remixing, I feel like we were talking about, like, 2010s, that era. I feel like there was way more people releasing remixes, like, and not through these formal processes. It's probably, like, way more copyright and all that stuff it's way more, it's a different landscape than it was then, than just releasing music.
What is, I remember when, I want to say it was like 2016, 17, maybe even 15, SoundCloud started taking down people's mixes and people's remixes. And that was the first time that happened, and it was because of copyright laws, and like people were fucking shocked.
Yeah, when I was blogging, all my shit, I would get DMCA or whatever the thing was.
Yeah.
Like, emails all the time, like, you gotta take this down.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's changed a lot, and I think that it's good that certain artist stuff is protected, but the gag is that a lot of times it's these huge record labels that are probably not even paying their artists what they deserve.
Yeah.
That are making you take down like a remix and stuff like that, which is kind of unfortunate. But I definitely wanna toy around with like samples of tracks that I listened to growing up, but not so much create remixes. I think just like a heavy influence rather than a remix.
Great. So we've talked about a lot of the genres that you explore in your DJ sets and the Maricon parties, you know, tribal, reggaeton, all these things. Is there any genres that you haven't really explored musically, like in DJ sets, production, whatever, that you would like to explore? Maybe just...
Yeah, so I've been tapping into like things like Miami bass and UK garage a little bit, but I feel like I've definitely not tapped into like drum and bass and jungle and like very heavily breaky stuff that much.
Yeah, no, I'd really love to hear your perspective on that. Maybe we'll get a mix.
You want a mix? That? You want a drum bass mix?
Yeah.
All right, let's do it. It's a challenge, bitch.
Yeah. Okay, let's do it. All right, well, this was a lovely conversation. Really geeked out with you. We have a lot more to talk about offline.
We do.
But thank you so much for like agreeing to do this. First of all, being the first person and like being so open and sharing so much.
Yeah, anytime. Thank you so much for thinking of me. I feel honored.
Yeah, I mean, this has been literally a year in the making.
Wait, we've been talking. You've been like, when are we gonna do it?
But then it would be like, yeah. Then I'm like, oh shit, I'm not ready yet. It was like,
right, and then you would be at nonstop.
Oh.
And we're like, oh, I woke up at 7.
Yeah. But I think it just needed to happen at the right time, and it's definitely the right time. I appreciate you for making the time.
Of course, thank you so much for having me. I love you.
Love you too. Afters is recorded, mastered, and edited by Tomas Skelly. Music by Nicolo Bernardi. Art by Cisne. Afters is produced, edited, and directed by myself, Anthony Cuellar, in New York City.